Okay, we're live. The time is now 5:43 and we are reconvening into open session. We did take one action by a vote of 0, all or to nothing in favor of ratifying the termination of one classified instructional assistant special ed 1 effective the end of workday November 12, 2021. And I'll get that information to you in a minute. At this time, I would like everyone to stand and a salute for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to invite board members for comments and announcements. Bill?
I have none, thank you.
Lisa? Go ahead and push. There we go.
The next one down. Yeah.
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
None at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon?
Yes, sorry, I've got something. I would just like to say that fellow trustee Jessica, Anthony and I had the opportunity to go to the annual education conference sponsored by the California School Board Association. And it was a really powerful experience. We had the chance to select from hundreds of different options of informational sessions designed for board members. And I took the opportunity to attend a lot of equity and justice seminars. And I walked away with feeling good about the changes that we've made in our district, that we're better supporting our diverse student population, but with also lots of ideas and recognition of opportunities and connections that I've made that can assist us in going above and beyond our minimum requirements for the DOJ. And I shared my initial thoughts with Dr. Holtum, and I just wanted to say that I'm going to continue to advocate for our diverse population, our students of color, our students who maybe don't have as loud of a voice, and we're making great progress, and I look forward to more that we can do to support every student in our diverse district.
Thanks, Sharon. I was supposed to go to the same conference and I got sick right before it was supposed to start, so I had to switch over to virtual. It is a very powerful experience for sure. And whenever the list of workshops comes out, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I can't figure out which ones I want to go to first or which ones I want to read. So I cheat a little bit and I go in and I download all the documents for the ones that I want to read on. And then I attend the ones that I really want to attend. So I get more bang for my buck that way. Spencer, do you have any comments or announcements?
Yes, thank you. I'll try to be brief. I too was able to attend CSBA, California School Boards Association in San Diego with several of our board members, and it was a great experience on a number of different levels. Also want to thank all and let the board know that I received in writing and email 41 emails and numerous other thank yous for Friday, December 13th as an optional work day. So thank you very much, board, for providing that for everyone in our district. Much appreciated. Also like to Ms. Roberts, who's one of our teachers at Ophir. I was able to attend her class today, dressed up in red with a beard. And that was one of my highlights of my year. So thank you for inviting me and allowing me to do that today. That was great. I was also able to do that at SDO as well. And that too was a highlight. So thank you for inviting me to do that. Because I was doing that, I was unable to attend Shop with the Cop but several of our schools was able to do Shop with the Cop today. and like to thank OPD for doing that. We have a lot of things, a lot of kids who were able to take advantage of that program today from several of our schools. So thank you very much, Oroville PD and the city of Oroville for organizing that. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, do you have any comments or announcements to make?
Yeah, I have two. First, we have been given the opportunity to participate in some free testing of all of our staff and students as they're coming back from break, courtesy of the California Department of Public Health. So tomorrow, all students and staff will be bringing home a rapid test kit. It is a voluntary test that they're to take 3 days before they return and 1 day because it's 2 tests in rapid tests. So we were just excited to get the opportunity. It was one of those things that just sort of appeared. I said, yeah, sure, we'd like to do it. And then 30 minutes later, they said, well, we're not doing that anymore. And then 2 days later, 3,000 test kits show up. So it was that kind of an experience. And I just wanted to also take an opportunity to thank Nurse Woods and all of our health assistants throughout the district. Getting the testing with the, it's a very, very complex issue for our employees. So getting the COVID-19 testing operational within the district and everybody's testing and is happy with the path that they have has been very complicated and very confusing and has taken a lot of work. So I just want to really say thank you to that team of health assistants and the nurse for helping getting us through that. That's it.
Thank you. Janet, do you have any announcements to make?
I do, thank you. Tomorrow night, we have our community meeting that we are doing virtually, and that community meeting is one of 2 meetings that we do throughout the year. And it's an opportunity to go through our school data and present how our students are doing and any changes that we've made based on the DOJ settlement. So I have that meeting tomorrow night. I want to thank all the teachers and the staff for the hard work they've done this year. This year is far more challenging than even last year was. And I think everybody has done a super good job of trying to hang in there. And I really want to do a shout out to Dr. Holton, because with all those challenges, he has been trying to go around and figure out what to do to help and support teachers, health aides, everybody, because we're short-staffed and it's hard for everybody to be able to do their jobs well. And I think he's done a super good job of trying to figure out what people want and listening to what all the concerns are and suggestions. And so he has gone to schools and has done different things, and I've been very appreciative. He's also provided support at the district office, and I want to thank the board for their recognition and the generous offer that they're doing on Friday for our mental wellness. And I appreciate the fact that you've acknowledged and recognized what a tough year it's been for everybody. So just thanks to everybody for all the great job they've done throughout the year.
Indeed. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Merry Christmas. Can you send me an invite to that meeting tomorrow?
Yes, I will.
Kimberly, do you have any announcements to make?
I do. I have several today. One thing I want to do is thank Santa for coming to Sierra del Oro. It was a very special thing for our students to get a special thank you. I want you to know that we are still monitoring and waiting for the universal pre-K funding to come forward so that we can put in a new contractor application. As soon as we get that, we'll be putting in that application. I also need to bring the board up to date on a few things. One of the things that I need to share is that effective this summer and next fall, there will be a change in the titles for special ed. One of the changes that will be made is we are going to be looking at the titles being changed from current mild mod credential to the MMSN and the ESN, which is formerly severely handicapped. The SELPA and the district have already adopted the new titles. It was something that we felt was proactive due to the fact that this change was coming. One of the things that we have done proactively in looking at declining enrollment and our least restrictive environment requirements is to continue the movement that was started primarily by Central some years ago in blending programs. The new credentials, as well as the older credentials, neither one separated SDC or RSP. SDC and RSP is a construct based on percentages. If a student is with non-disabled peers for 50% or more of the day, that includes PE, lunch, recess, and passing time in the middle school, they are considered resource or RSP. If they are with their non-disabled or typical peers for less than 50%, then they are teamed SDC or special day class. That's the only difference, is that percentage of time that they are with their typically developing or non-disabled peers. The credentials themselves do not address RSP or SDC. They simply look at the support needs of the students. With the new titles, the state is looking at the percentage of support that the student needs. Is a student an extensive support needs student, formerly severely handicapped? Or is a student a mild, moderate support needs student? Those are the only two differentiations that the state is making. We moved forward when Central, I gave you a document on least restrictive environment. As you know, we are monitored by the federal government and by the state Department of Education constantly in terms of indicators that they have set targets for us. When it comes to least restrictive environment, the target is that 80% of your students with disabilities or SWDs will be included in a general education classroom 40% of the day or more. We have failed to meet that target. We have historically failed to meet that target many times. When I first came into this position, we had failed to meet that target for 2 years in a row. And had we failed the third year, we would have been in significant disproportionality on LRE. Thankfully, we were able to make some changes and that did not happen. We are currently in the same situation again. Unfortunately, the targets have not always been met. We have done our best to provide inclusion for our students and opportunities. The great thing about it is I'm not worried about it for this year because Central has taken an additional step this year and they have included their students so much more. A few years ago, Ishii Hills asked if they could also blend their programs. I will be honest, I did not think that they had the capacity for it the way that Central had the capacity, and I was not in agreement with it. But Principal Henderson and her team assured me that they could make it work, and they did. And it has been very good for those students. This past year, also OFER in 2019-20, the RSP teacher up there approached me and asked me if she could go blended the following year. And I approved that. And she started a blended program in 2020. And it was really great to have that program move forward. This year in preparation for the new credentials, and because of our declining enrollment, we went ahead and took our 4 remaining students, our 4 remaining teachers that were not blended, and we blended them. And we also gave them a 5-hour aid extra. Even though we were short aides in the district, we felt this was a priority. So we gave them the extra 5-hour aid to support the RSP students and to push in with them. One of the things that we've also done is make sure that we have been providing extra support for the program. We have a student teacher who became a new teacher to us this year. We have, she's been struggling. She has received support from her administrator, from the school psychologist, who is the SLEL leader, From myself, from Jody Waddell, we contracted with BCOE and brought in a behavior specialist to provide support. We have a referral into the SELPA for additional support for her. We provided release time for her BITSA person to come down and give her support as well. In addition, I meet monthly with the blended teachers. We do a grade level meeting every month. The teachers are able to give me topics that they would like me to research for them and bring them resources on. So there's been a lot of support in this area. That's one reason that we are hopeful that we will not be found significantly disproportionate in this area. I have given you the handout that you can read at your leisure. At the very back, there's also handouts. The same handout is over there. There's 40 copies. It also has a summary that was done, a meta research on the evidence on inclusion education and its reasons that it is beneficial for all students. And so it's not just because the state is telling us that we have to, or we're going to be monitored and we're going to be brought in for differentiated assistance or any of those kind of things. It is also good for our students. And so I wanted the board to be aware of where we are on this matter, the extra supports that we have been providing and will continue to provide, and how we are moving forward and supporting our students in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. That's really valuable information.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing that. I appreciate all the information on the changes. I knew that there were changes, but I didn't know how extensive they were. My concern is at the last board meeting, we had several special education teachers ask about the support for combining RSP and SDC because they saw additional behavioral and discipline issues because of this. And we haven't really addressed that. I know what's coming forward. We're going to talk about the concerns about the discipline issues at ISHE. But it seems that there was a direct relationship to the SDC RSP classes being combined. Could it be that maybe the teachers didn't receive enough preparation for this? Or you mentioned you're bringing in additional support, having an aide, but how were the teachers prepared for combining the classes for the blended programs? And is there something else that we can offer if there is still concerns and issues among the special ed teachers?
The classes that were combined this year are not the ones who are bringing forth concerns. The classes that are bringing forth concerns are like at Itchy Hills, where they were blended several years ago at their request. And they're just now bringing forth problems and concerns. So I have to ask, yes, we want to bring in additional supports and we have provided additional aids. But when it's an existing program that has been in place and been successful for several years and it suddenly starts developing problems, then we do have to do a data analysis. We need to use our Swiss data. We need to use our ARIES data. We need to figure out what happened where the program was successful and then it stopped being successful, and determine what the root cause of that is and what we can do to change it.
I'd like to interject at this time. This is public comments. And so if Madam President, if you'd like, I can put this on our agenda for next meeting as a discussion item, as I know this has been something that's widely been discussed and will be discussed more in public comment regarding special education. So that would be my recommendation, that we put it on our board agenda for a discussion item next time around. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board would like to extend the invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on matters which are school related. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, please use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. Comments or questions may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments and questions received will be read into the record and or addressed during the meeting. However, comments received without the sender's name cannot be shared during the meeting. Do we have any emails or raised hands at this time?
No, we do not.
I do not have any at this time. Thank you.
Do we have anyone in the gallery who would like to speak at this time? Yes, Ms. Beth, how are you? I'm well. Merry Christmas.
Did I do it?
You're good.
Okay, good. All right, I have a couple of things I'd like to share, and I'm hoping to get through them quickly so I don't hit my 3-minute mark. The first one is the magnet school at Central. I wanted to update. Last month I spoke and shared some information that I got from members, and after that I received some more information, 4 more emails. 3 of them were very positive and very happy about the activities that are going on and the plan that's going, and felt they had been very informed and were happy with what was going on. So I want to make sure I shared that. The second one is about discipline. I see that ISHI is a focus today, and I wanted to thank Mr. Legrone for bringing up discipline last time and asking it to be an agenda item. However, when I heard from you, I felt you meant as a district. It seems to me that ISHI kind of got focused on, and that couldn't be further from the truth. It is all through the district, discipline issues and behavior issues and DOJ issues are occurring. So I appreciate you speaking up and saying something. Sorry that I left too early to catch that. But I do feel that ISHI feels like it got focused on because they were very verbal and others haven't. I spoke to some members at my site and asked them if they would share some of their experiences. And they were very honest in saying that sometimes they felt uncomfortable doing that. Not everybody is me, right? That speaks all the time and feels okay with saying things. And they were happy that they had an association that would speak for them. So although you might not be hearing things, I'm sure from some of the Swiss data and things that we see, there are issues everywhere. My school had the police at the site last week with behavior issues. So I know it is not just ISHI school that's having issues, and they seem to have gotten focused and kind of hyper focused on them. And that's not the truth. It's really everywhere having these issues. The last thing I wanted to speak on is just SPED. And I thank you for your information about that tonight. I do feel I disagree with you. I don't know if it ever worked completely with RSP STC, as we had a meeting and there were many people at all different sites not feeling comfortable with how things are going. I sent it as an email to you board members, and I hope you all received that. I don't know if you received new ones, Lisa. Good, perfect. And I sent my last note just as an addendum onto it so you would understand what I had said last time. Good. So as I stated before, we had a meeting with OETA meeting special ed last month, and I had mentioned some things last month and said I would do some more this month. So one thing that was brought up was more support needed for SPED teachers. Many of our new SPED teachers were hired just this year, and a lot of them did their SPED student teaching when school was just not really regular, online or hybrid, and they just didn't get the experience that a lot of us did during SPED. Our regular student teaching, and we all need some more support. So one thing that we did talk about was SELPA coming in, and I talked to Kimberly about that also. But perhaps just instead of having SELPA, the person comes in and kind of talks to the person for a little bit on a Monday afternoon and gives some ideas. I think what these teachers really need is someone to be in the classroom to demonstrate those things. Can you be there for a week every day, half days? Can you come in 2 times a week or something and really give these new teachers something to base their hat on, and that they can really see the challenging behaviors that are in the classrooms, because it's not as easy. And even in just my TKK class, I have challenging behaviors and they're not special ed. We talked about BITSA mentors, and I know we've had some time with them. However, it's very difficult for BITSA mentors to go to the other classes due to the fact that we have no substitutes. It's very difficult. So in order for a teacher to leave their classroom, they either need to try to get a sub on their own, they need to hope that a sub shows up, or their students are then put to another class, which then puts a burden on the other teachers, which a lot of people don't want to do. So just having a BITSA mentor take off a day to go talk to their person that they're mentoring is difficult to do. They don't want to take that and put the burden on the other teachers having to cover their class. They talked about perhaps maybe having a teacher specialist, the MTS or SPED admin actually come in and spend time in their classrooms every day. So it's great to give ideas, but if you're not there to help implement them and see, well, what do you do when this happens? Because, it's not student teaching, but in student teaching, they give you great ideas. And then you actually get in the classroom and you find that idea doesn't work with that group of students. So you really need someone there to, what do you do next going through? Communication, talked about emails with directives and explanations, answering them, maybe a newsletter with all the different things. I don't know how many SPED teachers know that that reclassification has come out. Perhaps that was at the last SPED meeting. Training for new assignments, teachers have asked for that. I know there is a difficulty getting substitutes again, so perhaps admin could cover with that. Also, even though you've mentioned STC and RSP seems to be working, what I'm hearing is that it's not working. And if we have to have that and have more inclusion, how can we make this work? So we need more input from teachers working with admin to get that program to work, because right now it's not.
Okay, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the information is extremely valuable. We always really appreciate all of your input, even if it's emails. I know coming to meetings like this is exceptionally difficult, especially after the long day, even for us. So please email us, get in contact with us any way you can if you have anything, any concerns, comments, questions at all. Is there anyone else who has anything to say on agenda items?
We have a hand up in Zoom.
Okay,
So Faru, if you'd like to talk now.
Okay, can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for taking my raised hand. And yes, that's correct. I could not be there in person just as a working mom. I had to be home, I had to get my kids and be here as well. I also wanted to write a letter. I think it's a more articulate when there's something planned to better utilize my time and get my point across. I did put some notes down, but I didn't have time to do the whole letter. But I did want to start with a couple of things. I did have an amazing day today. Cross my fingers that tomorrow will be great with my students, but that was taking all of my time and energy to make sure my students had a good day today, when the second last day before they go on break, which is very hard for a lot of the students in our school. As was wonderful that we got an email about that from Angie that addressed that. So thank you, board, for being here on this stormy, cold night. And the few main reasons I'm here is, one, to share my perspective quickly on this year so far. A lot of you know I've been in this district since '95, special ed and general ed, and I've been lucky enough to have worked in every school in our district. The other reason I want you to hear my plea for more support for our students and provide a liaison somehow with county support, so we have supports at physically our sites, so the students and their family can get the supports they need. And the last is to please come visit my class, or I'm sure any others, so you can see the incredible growth, the beauty, the love that these teachers are sharing with their students, and the growth these students are making with our extremely limited staff. And when I say that, it's because since COVID, yes, it seems some programs worked before, and then amazingly, they're not working right now because of COVID, because of the drawback. Most of us know that mental health issues have skyrocketed during this time. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm assuming that we have skyrocketed behavior issues and things that we did before didn't work. That we've had turnovers, a lot of absences from staff. I'm talking about COVID quarantine, so we don't have full staff often. Many of us do multiple things at school each day. And we're doing it because we love our students, and that's why we want to be here. We are teachers or support staff, and I could not do what I do in my classroom without other amazing teachers and amazing support staff. So we're incredibly lucky, but we need more help. I am begging you and pleading for more support for us. We here at Oroville, most of the teachers, I don't know if all, maybe some of us are, I am not.
Baru,
Yes,
yeah, your time is up.
okay. So can I just wrap up saying thank you for hearing me, and please get some help for us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on items of school that are school related? Mr. Williamson, how you doing?
Hi. So I didn't plan on speaking to this tonight, but as I'm sitting there, as you may know, I'm going to be exiting within a few hours from now from Oroville City Elementary School District. And I
take
wanted,
umbrage.
yeah, and I do want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Holtum for his leadership and his willingness to help support and guide me through my growth as an administrator, both at a school site and now off of a school site. So I want to also thank Dr. Chanel Carter, who's not here, for hiring me 7.5 years ago, the multiple board members and parents and students, and some of my staff. They're not actually here for this tonight, but they're here for the studio, which we'll speak about later. But again, thank you, Dr. Holtum. Thank you, Andrew, Kim, Kimberly, and Janet, for all that you've done to help with my growth, and all that you've done to help our students. All of you have, you've really been, I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you. So,
Mr. Williamson, don't you sit down yet. I would like to personally thank you for being a supportive leader to my children and all the children at Central.
Thank you.
We would not be where we are today if it weren't for your leadership, for real. Any further comments or questions, announcements that are school related? Okay. At this time, we are moving on to our annual organizational meeting. And we will be beginning with the nomination and election of our board president. I have been the president for a year. The term is 1 year. And every year we reorganize president, vice president, clerk. And at this time, I would like to suggest Sharon Nielsen for the position of board president for the next year. Do I have any comments or suggestions?
Is this something that we're voting on?
It is something that we have
Do
to,
you need a motion?
we will need a motion if it's okay with Sharon, if Sharon is willing to accept.
I'll accept the nomination.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve the nomination and election of the board president with representation to Sharon. Is that how that would go?
Sounds good. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, ordinarily, we would pass the baton on to her afterwards. Next month.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so next month,
Which would be
Sharon, you will assume the role as president. So tonight, Madam President Barnes, you'll continue leading the meeting, and now we'll move to the next B, where it's nomination of a vice president.
which is exceptionally advantageous considering you're attending by distance. At this time, we would like to nominate and elect the vice president. Do we have any volunteers or interested parties for vice president? Ms. Jessica, are you interested?
I'm going to say no, I'm not interested.
Okay. I appreciate that.
And board members, I just want to remind you that you can just nominate your peers for these roles. So if you're not interested in a position, maybe you would nominate one of your other peers to be in one of these positions.
Would it be advantageous to nominate the former president? Or would it be more advantageous to allow?
That is absolutely permissible. And just for the sake of history, some boards rotate this on an annual basis, and other boards have had the same president for year after year after year after year. So there's no rhyme or reason. It's just what serves, the pleasure of our current board.
I would make the suggestion that Sandra be the board vice president. That would be my opinion.
I can accept that. The way I feel about the roles as it is more about experience, opportunity. Absolutely. I think everyone should have the opportunity to be in a leadership position.
One of the things I took away from one of the trainings that we went to, a board president spoke that she was board president for almost too long, and no one else learned how to do the roles of a president. And so it was heavily suggested that it rotate more often.
I agree. And every time I've been president, and this will be my second term as president, the end of my second term, has been in the middle of a cataclysm, an apocalypse, or other new disaster. Do we have a motion?
I motion that we move forward with the nomination and election of a board vice president with Sandra Barnes.
Second?
I second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I appreciate the nomination to vice president. At this time, I'd like to ask for a nomination and election for board clerk. Just to expand on the roles, we know that the board president leads the meetings, does a lot of the one-on-ones with the superintendent. Vice president is typically the pinch hitter. If the president is unable to attend a meeting, then the vice president takes over, helps out with some of the paperwork. Now, the clerk is third in control, and they usually just sign a couple pieces of paper once a year, twice a year. Jessica, would you be interested in serving as clerk for 1 year?
Yes.
I don't want you to get a head cramp. Oh, no. Do I have a second?
A second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Jessica, for accepting the position of clerk for 1 year. At this time, we would like to appoint the secretary to the Board of Trustees. And the superintendent always serves as the secretary. He is a non-voting member, but still maintains a position on the board as a member, position of relationship. So at this time, we'd like to appoint Spencer Holtom as secretary to the board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. Welcome back, Dr. Holtom.
It's nice to be back. Thanks, board.
At this time, I'd like to adopt location, starting time, and schedule for the board meetings for the 2022 school year. Check your calendars, make sure there's no conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts on your calendars? No conflicts. I don't have any conflicts either. May I have a motion to approve the calendar for the 22 calendar year?
I motion that we adopt the location, starting time and schedule for the 2022 board meeting calendar year.
Second,
I think we have to first say what time it's going to be because it's not indicated
it's
in
not
the
in there?
agenda.
I just assumed. 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock, okay, still, Ms. Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
If nobody's made the motion, I'll
Go
motion
ahead.
that with the 5 o'clock inclusion into the agenda.
Thank you, Bill. Do you have a second on the motion?
A second.
I'll second.
A bit of lag. Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries. It will be at 5 o'clock on the days listed in the agenda. At this time, we'd like to move on to presentations, starting with the magnet school concept at Central Middle School. I think that's yours, Mr. Williamson.
Okay. Go right ahead. I was going to intro you, but go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Hearing voices. All right, good evening, board. A few months ago, I came in front of you to discuss the concept of the studio at Central Middle School, the studio being like an art studio, a dance studio, that sort of music studio. You asked me to come back. You also asked between that time and now that we continue to work with our staff and local stakeholders to just start to develop this concept and get it on paper. So inside your board packets, you received a concept paper in draft form. I'd like to take credit for this. However, I have to admit that this was mostly put together by other staff with the support and guidance of Ting Sun and Janet Hanley. So that document today, I'd like to highlight a few things in there. I'd also like to start out by saying that the last 7.5 years, Central Middle School is focused on relationships. When Central first started on this endeavor, it was struggling not just academically, it was struggling mightily with discipline. It was known in the community as a school that was a tough school that had a lot of issues. And with a lot of hard work from the entire staff and a lot of support from Dr. Holtum, Andrew, it's changed dramatically. The staff has completely put all their energy into social emotional learning. Prior to it becoming the buzzword for school districts and schools in the state, we were already working on that. We have moved forward with our special ed population to make sure that they're as included and as pushed in as possible. One of the things I wanted to add to that's part of this is we even have our severely handicapped students pushed into regular core classes. So we're doing everything we can for every student at that campus. But what we're discovering is something, well, let's talk about the concept of having a magnet school. That has actually been passed around for many years. And I don't know who started it. I don't remember when, but we've always talked about it. Central was not the name of the school that was usually brought up. It was, this elementary school or perhaps this new middle school. But as time passed, what we've realized, especially because of the pandemic, is though we're creating relationships for our students, we're sometimes not meeting the needs of those unique students who may, academics they do fine in, but they're not in love with it. They're not connected with it. And that's when we start to lose them, when they're not connected with it, is in middle school. So the idea of bringing this kind of a program to students that are not connected to the core, they're still able to do it. They still do well. They're still exceptional students sometimes, but they're not in love with what they're doing. And so it's our goal as a district and the staff behind me. So if you're part of one of our committees, could you please stand up? So these people and more have been involved in this process, and they are spending hours after work on their time putting this together. So thank you. They're going to speak to you here in a moment about the specifics and details, but I wanted to point out a few things that we've discovered as a district, and the timing, though the pandemic has not been in any way a positive thing, it has led us to realize that this needs to happen sooner than later. So I'm going to read a few things out of this concept paper just to point out. As the district begins to emerge from the increased educational challenges brought on by COVID-19 pandemic, both district and school leadership have developed a magnet school concept focused on the arts for students, which includes engaging, creating, and achieving. The mission of Central Middle School, soon to be the studio, is to meet the unique intellectual, physical, social, and emotional needs of students who are in a critical period of their lives as they move from childhood to adolescence. So this has already been something that we have worked on, but we're not there yet. We're following the California Department of Education's CDE's 12 recommendations for middle school grade success outlined in Taking Center Stage 2. The studio is embarking on an exciting effort to transform its educational program to meet its mission by utilizing research-based content and promoting instructional practices to advance achievement of its middle school students. Focusing on the 3 recommendations of middle grades success, Central Middle School, or the studio, will use the relevance, relationships, and access to engage student interests, promote creativity, and help students achieve academically and socially emotionally. In those 3, relationships has been something we've been successful at and that we've put all of our energy into, and it has truly helped. But relevance and access have been something that we now need to move on to. We now need to not only have relationships with kids, but give them relevance to what they're learning, give them a passion for what they're learning. And that's what we feel the studio is going to do, not just for the kids at Central, but the kids for Southside and the kids in Oroville City Elementary. So that is why we're doing what we're doing today. Though I am in no way, shape, or form a VEPA person, even my penmanship is poor. I appreciate the arts. I love music, and I'm excited that I'll be able to come back and see this happen. This is not going to happen because of I think Dr. Holtom is absolutely the best superintendent I've worked for. I've worked for 7. It's not going to happen because of him. It's not going to happen because of the next principal. It's going to happen because of the people that are in this room now. They're the true leadership on this. They will carry it through, and I can't wait to see it take shape. So at this time, I would like to invite Aaron Jackson and Shauna Hutzel, both teachers, up to the mic. We also have classified in this group. It's not just teachers. This is a complete group effort at this time.
All right, so we just wanted to share with you a little bit about kind of the ideas that we're talking about and sort of the overall vision where we want to go with this. One of the first things, as Michael talked about, all of our students have very unique needs. We have students from a diverse population. Our community is diverse. We want everybody to feel included. We want to be sure that we are responding to the needs of each student, but it's not a one size fits all. So how can we bring in more from our community as well? How can we open it up? So that's one of the things that we're going to be trying to do. We know that middle schoolers by far are the most unique group of kids. They can be super energetic and they can be totally lethargic. They can be very emotional or they can just be apathetic. Each kid's different. So we want to be sure that we are connecting with them in as many different ways as we can. Michael talked about relevance. We want to, as much as possible, pull in community, pull in things that they can attach to and be able to generalize to real life situations. Things that maybe would develop some skills that they can take with them in through high school and start to have an idea of where they might fit in our community. Relationships. We have spent a lot of time building relationships. We're going to continue to build relationships. We want to support the kids in building those relationships and then connecting with outside resources as well. We also want to give access. So as Michael mentioned, not every kid's super in love with academics, understandable. Some of them are struggling with it, but they will go all day and draw, not realizing that they're actually doing some math. They're doing engineering, creating things. So all of these can be tied together. And we want to make sure that all of our students have access. What we're going to do to kind of preview this is to start, we are going to actually be looking at doing on the 28th of January, we're going to try and do a Hmong New Year celebration, which would be a day-long event where each of the students would group and go into rotations where we're hoping to demonstrate some traditional Hmong cultural activities such as games, art, cooking. What else do we have on there? I gotta check.
Music and instrument making,
Mhm.
storytelling and patterns. We really wanted to, with this day, we wanted to pull in those community resources. We realized that our Hmong population is one of our largest populations as well. So I feel like it's important that they're addressed. But we really wanted to incorporate the 5 senses so that we're talking about the whole child. So you know all of the different needs that children have and the different ways that they learn. So give something to everyone. So each of them has access to this information that we're presenting them.
And help our students who are in these Hmong families to feel that they're valued as well, and that their culture is valued. We wanted to start there. That's not the end of the story. We are looking at putting together something for Cinco de Mayo for this semester. And then we're actually going to be looking forward several years out as to how we're going to develop this. And one of the things we're going to do is sit down, hopefully over break. We've actually got a meeting with Ting Sung and with Janet Hanley. So we're hoping to be able to kind of get an overall map out of what this is going to look like for our process. But we want to build all of this into our curriculum as we have it now. I think that's it.
Quick question.
Yes,
You mentioned that Hmong New Year was going to be January 28th,
it's not. It's
It's
not
not.
officially.
not officially.
Not officially, but here's what we came up with. Originally, we were thinking of doing the Chinese Lunar New Year, but we realized that we really want to be more proactive with our community
Right.
and respond to, make sure that we're including more of our population. We realized Hmong New Year actually takes place in kind of late December, early January.
Right.
So we thought, okay, we can't do it on the 1st of January because we're not in school, but 28th will give us time to be able to talk to everybody, get everything together to be able to do it and still be within January. So that's kind of our hope.
Awesome. Keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Send
We
us
would
invite.
love for you guys to come visit us that day and see what's happening. So we will definitely keep you up to date on what the plans are, what the day is going to look like. And we would love to have board members there, see what's happening. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
I would just like to say thank you very much for presenting. I think they're doing a fabulous job of integrating the center stage, which is the needs of the middle school student, and how to get them involved. And they've been talking with their staff, and your staff has really risen and are all interested in helping to make it work. So they're working together as a great team. And even though we have transitions and Mr. Williamson started the process, they're doing a fabulous job of helping us move forward and going into further planning. So thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Great
we're
job.
very excited. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, at this time, we are inviting a presentation about the first trimester student data at Stanford.
So I would just like to say quickly, this year, each school hired a teacher on special assignment to support literacy. And in addition, Stanford also hired a teacher to work with the social emotional needs of students, and that is Jennifer Mcgowan. These two ladies have done a fabulous job. And when I first met with Jessica, I was totally excited because when we talked about teacher on special assignment, she developed the program I had in mind, and she has done a phenomenal job. And she's also helped work with the other with the other teacher specialists throughout the district. And she helped lead them in getting things started at the beginning of the year. So ladies, we're excited to hear what you have to say.
I made mine a little entertaining for you all. So, anyway, I'll start out just saying that
My name is Jessica North. I have been in this district for 25 years, longer than all these guys. And I have been a reading specialist at Oakdale Heights, 18 years ago. And I worked with Patty Garrison and we developed this RTI program, and I'm just kind of following that lead. So basically, the first, you can hit it again. So I wanted to just review our current data as of what we had in August to what we ended up with at the end of October. I wanted to talk about SIPS, which is the intervention program I'm using. That's a systematic instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics and sight words. It just starts out at the most basic fundamental phonics skills, builds its way up all the way to a challenge level where you can teach intermediate kids how to read by syllables so they can attack those multisyllabic words, which they encounter so often in their nonfiction reading and, you know, oftentimes just give up on because it just looks way too hard for them. And then Read Naturally groups, which is a fluency program based on nonfiction passages, and it's leveled, and it's using the strategy of repeated reading. It also has a comprehension and writing focus. And then my Code Red groups, and we'll just analyze those results, talk about our next goals. And then I was going to do just a little one slider on my student leadership group and how this job is allowing me to be a really effective student leadership teacher as well. So the data came in and it was tragic, like catastrophic. I have never in my 25 years of teaching seen the data come in in August that I saw. And I realized we had to reel in the reins. And this was a bigger problem than I had anticipated. I couldn't even fit 50% of the first grade into a beginning level SIPS group because they didn't know the alphabet. And I'm not talking about didn't know the alphabet like sounds. I mean, I showed them a letter and it was like a hieroglyphic. They didn't even know what it was. And that was 50% of our first grade scored below 10 on the BPST. The BPST is a basic phonics skills test that just starts out with basic skills, works its way down to more complex phonics skills. So I started out, this is my ABC group, literally ABC group. As you can see, the blue is in August. I have the kids that are at almost 0. And in October, I have them knowing some of those letters and sounds. I had one little girl who so wonderfully what was in my thought was, okay, maybe these kids, did they just not get it? Did they just not get taught that? And so I can just quick and dirty get it in there and they can get out. That one little girl was one of them. Once I taught her those sounds, she was able to put words together and she was out. She's in regular classroom instruction. The other ones are able to now move into the beginning level SIPS group. So they grew. Okay. And you can hit that again. So this is my beginning level SIPS group for first grade. They all scored at least over 10, so they knew some letters and sounds. They've all shown tremendous growth. They're all moving into being able to put together a consonant vowel consonant word, which is huge considering they were still learning their sounds at the beginning of the year.
Quick
Yes.
question.
Oh, sorry.
On the y-axis, you have 0 to 40. What is that?
Okay,
quantity?
so the BPST is scored from 0 to 40 for first grade is what we want them at the end of trimester 1. We want them at a 45. And so
Okay, so that's a score on a test.
Yes, that's
Okay,
the BPST. Yes. Go ahead. Okay, so I have a second grade beginning level SIPS group as well. These kids didn't come in quite as low, so I was able to start out at less than 10. So they're moving through the program a little faster, and they're also all showing 100% of them are showing growth. We still need more, and so I kept them in it for one more time. But I'm incorporating a little Read Naturally and Fluency in with them as well because they're starting to really gain confidence. Okay, this is my third grade. Third grade is the most challenging grade behavioral academically and everything as far as our school. We've absorbed a bird. We had the fires, we had the dam, and then we had the pandemic. And I feel like this grade has been the most effective. They have not really received a full year of education since they ever started education. They are showing growth. Some of them, significant to the point where it was like, oh, you just needed that gap filled. Now you can move along. Others of them, it's a little slower. There was also a lot of quarantining and things, so the attendance was a little bit sporadic. However, they still are showing growth. So they're winning. All right. This is my challenge level group. This group, I do it for 4th and 5th grade at different times of the day. This group is learning how to, instead of memorizing sight words, they're memorizing syllables, and they're really excited about doing it. They go back to their classroom and they can look at a word and they know that shun is the magic syllable, TIO and shun, and they can read. They can attack words and look at it and read them. And they're all showing growth, and they're even in their fluency as well. So this is my SIPS groups. And as you can see, let's see what these results mean. So 57 out of 58 students have shown growth. So we're serving 58 students in the reading room. 50% of my ABC group know their alphabet. 2nd and 3rd are moving into different levels of the SIPS group, and as well as into read naturally. And I had 2 students, I had several students graduate into more advanced intervention groups. And the basic point of this program is that kids aren't stuck. They're not just sitting in a group forever. They are moving. We're constantly reassessing, and we're constantly assessing what they need to be. And if they aren't showing the growth, that's where my SST recommendations can come in. That's where we can say, okay, what's going on? My next groups are read naturally. These are all done by my wonderful, wonderful aides. And I must say, I do have an aide in my reading room also helping to support those students. So Read Naturally is the program that we use the CBIMS to assess. So the CBIMS is curriculum-based reading passages. They get 3. They're timed for a minute on each, and you take the middle score as their fluency score. And then that's how we place them in the level. We wanted those kids that were right there, right on the cusp of having their fluency be right there, not necessarily the tier 3, but the ones that we could just give them that little extra push and they would be able to fly. You're going to have to hit, okay, oh, good. I thought those little things would twirl. Or you hit it again. I did this for my staff, so I had to make it exciting. So I had 95% growth in all the groups. 34 total students were served. I had several graduate, as you can see, 2nd grade, 5 graduated, 3rd grade, 4, 4th grade, 4, 5th grade, 3. That allowed those more kids to come in based on the winter fluency. So then we went to the winter fluency, which kids are right there. Let's put them in because we have room. Okay, here's my code red. Code red was the kids that literally were scoring 0. And so I had to do real easy 20-minute lessons where we actually manipulated words or letters with our fingers to make words. Okay, so here's all my groups. They were all very, very low. These are 5th graders and 4th graders who, can't spell basic short vowel words. And they're able to make some connections and do some things. I have 1, 2, 3 who showed no growth. They are now being SST'd. But that just shows you we had that many students that probably would have had an SST or would have been SST at the beginning of the year because there was no intervention to give them. So what are my goals? The late grade. The job's not finished. I originally wanted to make this 6-week cycles, but with this year being so challenging with quarantine and COVID, I'm not able to get the kids in here consistently. So I'm feeling like we're going to need to do it on trimester cycles, kind of like I did. So I want to have another whole revamp after trimester 2. However, my Read Naturally groups, I want it to be traditional. So we're doing every 6 weeks, we reassess with the CBIMS, see if we can move in another group. I want to have data-driven staff meetings. And the next one I want to have is to compare this with iReady and see how this is registering with the iReady data and what is that called? The dashboard, right? Dashboard. I also would like the grade levels to talk and be more, have more time to collaborate. That's the one component we're missing. We have the program, we have the consistency, we know where the kids are, and now teachers need to be able to have the time to meet, and they just don't. So that is where I'm imploring the board to offer some collaboration time to teachers during their day. We're trying to work with our administrator to embed some of that in our classroom day as well. Where he might take a group of kids so that those teachers can collaborate for an hour and have real data-driven conversations. Where are we going? What are you doing? How are you getting this? That's how we move forward. That's what all the research says, especially for RTI. And that I did faster than I thought. But my last one is this has offered me the opportunity to, I've always run the student leadership club, but I taught first grade. So I had to do it in a real rushed manner. When we had our dress up days, when we had our prizes, I would be like, okay, first graders, get on the iPads. I got to make the announcements. And it was always really, and now I have the opportunity to be that teacher, to offer that time on Friday afternoons to the student leaders. We got to host a popcorn party Halloween parade. I did my post office canned food drive where my leadership students were mail carriers, and the students from Stanford Avenue brought in a can and they got a postcard that they got to fill out and send to a friend, and my mail carriers sent it out every day to the kids. They got their postcard from their friend, and I raised a ton of cans. They're coming tomorrow to pick that up. We had a Santa visit with a photo booth. And then we're going to have, more fundraisers and things along the road, but it's just been so wonderful to give some of the kids that aren't struggling, that really just want to come back to school and just make it a better place and help their peers, have that opportunity to be recognized and have their own club, and to be able to give them the full experience in that. So that's it for me. Thanks. Any questions? No?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah. Excellent information. Hello, welcome.
You guys read my notes in the back there? It feels so weird to have my back to you. I'm Jen Mcgowan. I teach at Stanford Avenue, and I have also been in the district for 25 years, along with these other dedicated teachers. So the first thing I wanted to say was thank you to you as a board for finding value in the social and emotional learning that our students have needs in. And that has afforded me the ability to be in the position that I'm in. It was in my 25 years, it was a professional opportunity, but a scary leap, to be honest with you. And so I thought that, with your job as the board, you need to base your decisions on facts, and you need to base your decisions on data. And that's why I'm here this evening to present this to you. And so you'll see on there, we have the pause room with the pause button. There's no mistake there. That's because our pause room is for students who are struggling to make it through the day for a variety of reasons, whether it be anxiety, anger, frustration, all of the emotions that you can think of that don't go hand in hand with the growth that our students are able to make when provided the proper opportunities. So the facts are, as we know, we had the dam, we had the fire, now we had COVID. And so I don't want my presentation to be all doom and gloom. So my intention is to bring some joy along with some data and hopefully a little bit of cuteness for you. Before I move forward on the slides, there's only a few. I wanted to let you know that I also presented to our staff And I asked the staff members if they would be willing to give some feedback. And so two of the teachers, I wanted to read what they said to me. So they said, so one said, thank you for providing such a special place for my little kiddos to reset. What was at first a reset place has now become a reward for positive behavior, which is an amazing way for the pause room to get used. And I'll get more in detail here about what that is. And it says, thank you for making such a difference to us. And then another teacher said, I can teach in my class now. My students can sit and stay in class because I took advantage of the pause room. I appreciate the positive connection you provide as another staff member who can discuss the same rules and reinforce what I have taught, but in a fun and interactive setting that is safe for them in their heightened status. And that's really the students that come to the pause room. When they come back to my class, they're interested in learning and routinely are now able to problem solve where they weren't before. So I thought that that was a pretty special thing to share. So if you go ahead, please. All right, so here we are in the nitty gritty. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with how the weeks work with the school, but week 2 is actually the first week that we are at school. So there weren't too many students, obviously, in the pause room. And what I did during that week was I went around and presented to each of the classes and let the kiddos know, hey, we have this new program. If you are struggling to make it through your day, you are welcome to come over and talk about what's on your mind so that I can help you get back on track, because we all want you here to learn. You are here, you want to learn. What can I do to help you be the very best person that you can be? And so that was week 1. And then you can see that things start to ramp up as we get into the school year. So this is all first trimester data as well, by the way. So as far as what you're seeing are the amount of kiddos that came and visited by class. And if you do the averaging, I'm servicing about 56 students a day in that 2.5 hours, because I'm only in the afternoon from 12 to 2:30. So you can also probably clearly see that our needs, as Jessica had said, are mostly with our first graders and our third graders. And again, because of the trauma that they've been through and that we've all been through. And so here it is with the times. That's obviously a little bit of a no-brainer with regard to when they come, because the pause room isn't open in the morning. However, I do IFLC in the mornings. And so occasionally I'll have a parent that isn't able to meet at a certain time. So that's when I try to jump in. So for instance, we had a student run off campus this morning, bright and early. And off I went to try to go help navigate that situation. So I feel like that's a really important part of my job, is to be able to, almost stop, drop, and roll. If something is happening that needs to be attended to right away, we've got multiple adults on campus, but not everybody can attend to a student that's in, severe need. So I try to be that person. So this is in conversation with Jennifer Garcia, who is at the county level. So I do not have access to Swiss. I have been asking to get access to that school-wide. So if you could help with that, that'd be great. So even though this isn't directly my information, it does correlate. I feel you can see that from 2018 to 2021, there has been a drop in referrals. And when I went and I spoke with the office staff, I said, is it safe for me to say during my presentation that you have seen fewer behaviors in the office? And they said, yes, most definitely. So I think that that's a real positive way to look at what we're providing for our students. And then the next one, Andrew. And here's the same information, except it tells you by months. So if you kind of take a look from August down, I think that you can see from 2018 to 2021, that there has been a decline in referrals. So that directly correlates to behavior, which in my mind directly correlates to students being able to learn. And the next one.
Would-
So I'm
Just a
sorry.
quick question. Would
Yeah.
the rise in incidences also correlate to the disruption itself, the fires, the dam, what have you? Because I
Yeah.
noticed some of them in some years are in the fall and then some in other years are in the spring.
Right. You know, honestly, as far as the data goes, I was just trying to pull together anything that I could
Oh, sure.
based on the students coming in and what I was able to, you know, help them with. And then again, like I said, the presentation was mostly meant for our staff, but I feel that my position is to help de-escalate so that I can strengthen the student incomes so that we can get what we want to achieve. And that is a well-educated, you know, community member. And so my intention is to listen and demonstrate my commitment to their level, the students' level. You know, you've got third graders that are at a kindergarten level emotionally as well as academically. And so they aren't behaving in the same manner in which we're accustomed to. And I have the amazing opportunities to sit and hear them and really understand what it is that's bothering them, as opposed to when you've got, you know, 30 students here and they all have your need and you want to hear what they have when you're in a general education setting, but you don't always have the opportunity to do that. So as far as steps forward, my intention now is to try to have some focus groups. I don't claim to be a counselor by any means. I do have my minor in psych and my master's in special education. So I feel that that contributes to my knowledge base and my ability to connect with students. And then I also want to be able to reach out to those parents, even though they're not my parents, on my role, and, you know, say, hey, I get to see your kiddo quite often. And I can think of one in particular where he has absolutely amazing engineering skills. He wants to help with everything. I watch him build things. If something's broken, he wants to help fix it. But when he's on the playground, he's a mess. He really struggles to have friendships. He struggles to obey the rules. He struggles to come back into class when it's expected. And so what I'm trying to do is make that connection with him and make him feel important and know that we find value in him and the other students as well. And the take your advice is basically, if my peers and my teacher friends have questions or input for the pause room, I would like to, you know, honor their advice. The next one. Okay, now we're at the fun stuff. Okay, so I said cuteness, right? So here are a couple of the students doing some of the stations that we have. So this is the thing that I call the big hug, and that puts a lot of pressure on them as they go through it. And I won't bore you because you can read the slide yourself, but they're, you know, it's proven to be helpful. Can we move on to the next one? And then these are some weighted blankets, just an area for students to be able to calm down. You know, I've had students, I haven't even opened the door yet when they're coming in, and they just melt into you in tears. Like they're just having that much of a struggle of a day. And then I have other students, if you want to move to the next one, who come in and they're resonating way up here. Like they need to get the energy out. And this one was hysterical to me because typically what they do is they bounce back and forth, or they sit in the chair and, you know, wiggle around on it or spin around on it. And he had the opportunity to use both, apparently. Next one, sorry. Again, gross motor skills, you know, students that tend to get in trouble, it's because they're not really aware of their gross motor skills and how to use them appropriately. So maybe they bump into somebody that causes an argument, a fight. So we're trying to de-escalate and create situations where we can help them learn about their body as well as learn to communicate. And then I thought you might not want me to go through each slide one at a time. So here are some other students doing some other things, some shells, some puzzles. Legos is huge. It's amazing the conversations that I can get out of the students, both male and female. when they're building something with the Legos or the kinetic sand, which is what you're seeing in that bottom right one. And here's a few more. We've got Play-Doh. That's my son's old gaming chair, so they can really get rocking on that thing. Adults like to come in and paint the bulldogs there with water. And the next one. Okay, and this is so cute. Oh, please. How do we do that? How is that going to work? Oh, it's the cutest thing. Okay, so what that is transitional practice. So I have the students run through stations. There's 8 stations. Then there's also some free stations in case they are not interested in doing something. And they've all learned, meaning the students who have had the practice to come in. You know, I've got new students each day, but my students that come in frequently, they've learned that when they hear the signal, that they stop and they breathe in, they smell the flower, they blow out the candle, and they do that a few times, and then they walk to the next station. And it has been an impressive amount of growth for each of the students that have come in, because they like coming into the room and they want to keep that privilege, and they know that it's a privilege. So to wrap things up, I wanted to thank you for implementing the position and prioritizing the whole student. We all want our students to learn, and in order to learn, sometimes we need to unlearn. And I think that that's what helps us all be better human beings. And that's what we're trying to raise, is just little great human beings for our community. So thank you for helping make that happen.
I just want to say thank you. Oh, go ahead. I just want to say thank you very much for all the work that you've done. I've been into her room several times, and it's amazing to watch those kids decompress and all the wonderful different sensory activities that she has to help them. Across the country right now, we are experiencing a lot of students with anxiety. Behavior is an issue across the state. And the fact that you came in with a proactive plan and have been able to address the needs of the kids at your school has made a big difference. So thank you for all the work you've done as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And I didn't say it, but of course, please feel free to come by. And it doesn't, you don't have to make an appointment. Just come on over if you've got time. Come to Stanford Avenue. We'd love to see you.
I have a couple questions,
Yeah.
actually. Do the students ask to go into this room?
So it can be a combination of things. It can be, I've plucked somebody out of the hallway who's running around. It can be the teacher has offered to allow them to come as a reward. And most oftentimes it's a child that's not performing well or doing well in the classroom at that time. And they just need a break.
And so it's like an immediate action for that student. Like,
Yeah.
student A, this is disruptive. Like, I'm going to ask that you go here, or how is that?
It depends on the teacher, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. What we've tried to present it as a staff is that it's an opportunity. It's not punitive. It's just an opportunity for you to go and take a breather and come. And I actually have a whole set of cards on the wall that talks about the different emotions. And, ultimately it says calm as one of them, or excited, or confident. Those are the 3 positive ones where, when the students are leaving the classroom, I ask, okay, how are you feeling? And, half the time they point to confident. Now they know that we're confident, even little kindergartners, or calm. And, so I think I'm going a little off topic here, but it can be used in any way the teachers see fit. And oftentimes the kids ask to come over. I can't even go for a walk in the hall. I feel like I'm such a rock star now. Can I come to your room? Can I come to your room?
Believe it. How long do they typically stay? Is there time?
There is. So that's funny that you say that. So initially I had my stations be 1 minute, and that was not good. So that was a learning experience for me. It was too short of a time. It created more anxiety. And so then I went to 5 minutes. And so I've got 8 stations, like I said. So then I felt like that was maybe taking a little bit away from too much of their academic time. And so just this week, I've reduced it to 3.5 minutes per station. And it seems to be going okay, but those who know that the time is shorter.
Well, I would really like to say that this is really impressive. And I think that it is so positive for the kids. And with both of the data that you presented, there is a huge number of third graders that are being affected on both your site visits and with scores of various things, being affected by all the natural disasters. Their emotional well-being has been altered every year in some form. What you're providing for them is honestly something that should be provided in every classroom, everywhere, every day.
Yeah.
Because those kids are the ones that are going to like to learn rather than feel like they have to sit still and learn. So I just can't thank you enough for providing that for these kids.
Well,
I think it's amazing.
It was you.
I think what you're doing for them, and all of the colors and the sensory and all of that, that's a form of learning too. And they're really happy to be there, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. They are. And sometimes it's hard to have them leave. So I have to barter with them.
My son, my oldest, was a challenging student. He was born in 04, so it would have been 09 that he was at Wyandotte. And I know Miss Wilson can attest when he got to Central that he was still a challenging student. And he is just now, that he's had oodles of creativity, but he was one of those kids that in kindergarten, he jumped the fence. And I got a call, where's your son going? Which fence did he jump? Oh, well, he's just going home. So this has been a long time in coming. I joined the board almost 7 years ago now. And it's been a long time in coming. My boys did not have this opportunity. So I understand how valuable it is.
Yeah. I mean, I could stand here and talk all evening, but it's one of those things too, where things that you took for granted, children knowing that there's a boys' room and there's a girls' room to go use the restroom. Now, that's not necessarily the case. They don't, right. But honestly, like they're not aware that, like at home, you can't necessarily go in when, if your brother or sister is in the bathroom, you can't do that around here. So it's been a challenging year for the kids. It's been a challenging year for the teachers, the admin, our yard duty, our support staff, our aides, the kitchen staff. I mean, you name it, bussers, everybody. So we're just trying to make it better.
This is something that would be beneficial, honestly, for all grade levels, not just TK through 5.
Yeah.
And I do want to share with the board that both Oakdale Heights and Wyandotte share a full-time person. Miss Mcgowan is, half-time IFLC in the morning, like she shared, and then half-time in the afternoon. So we do have that release time to provide some of this similar programs, concepts of having someone who has the time and resources to support those students that need this. And a little bit later in the morning board meeting, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I just wanted to kind of say that we have this program or similar programs in multiple schools, but it's something that, as you can see, we need more of. Thank you.
And this is a saving grace that we do have this during this time, because the kids are struggling so much within the last few years that we've had one tragedy after another. And for the kids to, be pulled out of school, be pulled back in school, so this right here is it's just a saving grace for the children to like that they can interact with one another and have a way to be able to express themselves and be able to have a safe place where they can know that they can basically tone down their behavior because they might not have that everywhere else. So thank you very much for your time and your dedication to this program.
Like I said, we want to make it better. And when I've been able to dig deep with some of the students, and I have been in contact with the teacher. Well, did you know that this was happening? had conversations with the counselor, and then we try to get them services. So it really is helping the students more than, than we've been able to do, I'd say, in the past. So, all right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to move on to the presentation concerning an update and on response to Ishi educator concerns.
Okay. At the last board meeting, there were several comments that had surfaced regarding the discipline at Ishi that had come from Ishi teachers. So as a result of those comments that were made, myself and Mrs. Hubbard went out to the classrooms, and we talked to the teachers as we went through the classrooms, and we did a tally of sorts in terms of looking at some, we did a tally and looked at behavior, and then we also looked at positive, negative comments. And after we did that walkthrough into every classroom, we also provided a staff survey, and we have 27 staff. So it's almost the full staff that responded to the survey, asking for comments and concerns and questions that they have regarding behavior. I think we've got some great feedback. It looked honest to me, and it's a good representation of how their staff is feeling. We also did a student survey that has been sent out today that students are doing, and I think tomorrow they're going to do some surveys as well. So we'll have that data to look at. I pulled up some history of looking at suspensions because I hear comments all the time, comments like we can't suspend anymore, or we've got too many suspensions. And so we've pulled a chart to look at the historical data on the suspension data to see where we're at. We also met with the principal several times in terms of looking at what we're finding so far and what our observations have been. So tonight, we're not prepared to give you an action plan with Ishi, but I did want to let you know what steps we've taken so far. The principal is going to be meeting with some staff members that have volunteered to meet over winter break, and they wanted to start working on the issue at that time. They will present all the data so that they can use all that information as they synthesize and decide what they're going to work on for their action steps to see what they can do to improve the behavior at their school. I met with, right after that last board meeting, the very next morning, I met with the special ed teacher who had made comments into public session. She made several comments, and I did talk to the other teachers that gave input or had made comments into the session. And when I talked with them, I'm hearing for the first time from the board, from the OETA president, that it's a broad problem. But when I talked to the staff of what they were seeing and what they were feeling, it was really all centered around their experiences on their campus, and they hadn't generalized it to the whole district. So far, the research has been just working with Ishi, because until tonight, I had not heard that it was a broader issue. I'll have to take some time to really investigate that, or the broad comment that the DOJ is a problem. I have not heard, I don't understand it's such a broad statement, so I'll have to do a lot of investigating to find out what the issues are, what the concerns are, how are we going to take care of that. But in terms of Ishi, what the plan is that they're going to take all the information that's been gathered. They're going to come up with an action plan. We'll present it to their staff. I will look at their action plan before they present it to the staff, and then we'll monitor it. And then we'll do a follow-up in the spring to talk about how well things are going at that school. The one teacher in particular who had talked to me the very next morning had said she didn't mean to convey it to be as severe as it is. But as we do go around the campus, as with every school, there were some issues, some concerns, and there's always ways to improve. So we definitely see that we need to make some improvements and we need to come up with some really solid action plans and clear communication on behaviors of what to do when we see them, how to be preventative. We just saw a great presentation of how to help a lot of students. They are experiencing a lot of students that have social emotional issues. So we need to take a look at that as well. We'll need to be looking at what kind of training, how are we going to roll out the rules? How are we going to roll out the behavior implementation plan? So I'm hoping to have it ready in January for the board, and we are working in process, and process takes time. And so to do it well, I want to make sure we've communicated with everybody. And next month, we'll be able to present some of the data from the surveys, and we'll do a pre and post so that we'll look at it in the spring and see if we've made growth based on the action plans. So that's kind of where we're at in the process in terms of the broad statement of it being district-wide. Then I certainly can take a look at that and see what the concerns are. But again, first time I heard of it was tonight. So any questions?
I'd be in favor of having it go district-wide if it's a district issue. My comments were not intended to just single out issue or be accusatory or finger pointing toward issue. I have an extreme concern about the safety of our staff and our students. I mean, if it's not safe, you can't learn and you can't teach. You know, the sooner we can get the information, the better, so we can figure out what to do and how to help set policies so that the administration and our staff can carry out those policies and ensure that learning environment is provided to our children. So I would like to see overall from the whole district what's going on. I mean, if the police are coming to to Oakdale, it seems like things are a little bit off the hook. I mean, for children that are that age that require police intervention.
So thank you, Bill. We will take it from here as far as looking at a district perspective. We'll start putting together some data and starting to put together an action plan. But I also want to share with the board that we know that this is a district issue. We know it's a societal issue. We know a lot of districts are dealing with this. But I also want to remind us that we are doing a lot of programs like what we heard tonight, where we are working with our campuses, with our students, and looking for interventions both academically and socially, emotionally, so that we can keep those kids, in the classroom. But you are right. We have issues and we need to address those, and we will look at it from a district perspective. Thank you.
Yes, Michelle.
I just want to reinforce what Bill said. I agree. It should be looked at collectively, especially since we're hearing from the teachers union that it is a district-wide issue. So I think there's value in investigating that. So thank you, Janet, for being willing to do that. And then I'd also like to suggest that you add the component of investigating how it's impacted by special education, because I did hear that. That was my understanding. That it was a root of a lot of the discipline and behavioral issues. And so if you could add that to your investigation, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. We will.
And considering that Christmas is coming up and our next meeting will be in the middle of January, should we expect to hear back in February?
I think we'll be able to at least give you an update in January.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because we definitely need to move on this, and we hear the board's concerns, and we'll be able to update you in January and be and hopefully have even more in February.
And that's not to negate the fact that we recognize that you guys are working hard. So we want to just appreciate every ounce of energy that you put out. So thank you very much. At this time, I would like to move on to public comments on action items. To interested parties who wish to speak on items that are listed on the agenda. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, please use the raise your hand button to speak. Comments may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name for your emails. Comments received that pertain to items listed on the agenda will be read into the record at this time. However, comments received without the sender's name will not be read. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss action or take action on any item that is not posted on the agenda. Do we have any emails or raised hands?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Do we have any audience members that would like to comment on agendized items? Okay, thank you very much. Before I move on to agendized items, do we want to take a moment recess? It is almost 7:30. You got it. Okay, consent agenda. Do we have any questions or concerns about the consent agenda? Hearing no comments or concerns on the consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask for approval for the letter to Governor Newsom concerning the pending vaccine mandates.
Thank you, Madam President. Last month, the board had asked me to write a letter that we can send to Governor Newsom as well as other government entities and local legislators. I put a lot of time and effort into researching this topic, and I try to make it all inclusive as we had a lot of opinions, not only from community members, but the general population and from staff and from board members. And I try to include as much as humanly possible to make it flow and be and concise. And so I'm bringing that letter forward to you tonight.
Any comments or concerns regarding the letter to Governor Newsom? Go ahead, Ms. Sharon.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am impressed that you were able to put together a letter that that did represent the opinions of multiple people. This is a very polarizing issue, but I think that this letter embodies our collective goal of wanting to move forward and wanting to support our students and just do the best we can by them. And I appreciate it. I'm happy to support this letter. And I think it reminded me, and hopefully reminds others, to have patience and empathy for those that we may not agree with on all items, but know that we are all here for our students and we want them to succeed. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Do you have a copy of it with you?
I do actually.
Can I see it?
It sounds like it's raining outside really hard. Okay, just as long as they get mine, leave the pain.
Oh,
So my comment is regarding paragraph 2 on the second page. Do we think that this is a necessary recommendation, or how will that affect those that are choosing the latter?
I'm sorry, Jessica, which one are you referring
Are
to?
we
So page number 2,
Right, number 2,
number 2?
number
two.
2, okay.
the
And
incentive program.
so when I was putting this together, I was trying to be, like I shared earlier, all inclusive and looking for ways to bring people together to incentivize it, because we know there's, as Sharon shared, a lot of people on both sides, and trying to make it more, I don't know what the word would be, but bring people together or make them so that, oh, there's options. Here I gave 4, and number 2 is just one option, because we do know that the state is strongly recommending this or moving forward with this. I also know that there's a lot of people on the fence with this. And so incentivizing a program, or at least putting out the idea for an idea, might get us closer to where we want to be. When I wrote this letter, I tried to keep my own thoughts and opinions out of it and try to reflect on all the different opinions that I heard. So though I added this, it may or may not reflect my personal opinion. But what I wanted it to do was let our legislators know and our governor know that if you're going to do this, try to meet us halfway. For at least some of those people out there who are on the fence, as far as whether they want to or not. Because ultimately, we want people to be able to, as I tried to illustrate in my letter, we at least want him to hear all the sides and multiple recommendations.
I want to move forward with sending this letter. I just don't feel warm and fuzzy about number 2. I feel like this is giving a reward to those choosing one answer versus the reward in itself is to choose, not to, in addition, receive something.
Right.
Else.
It's like incentivizing your child's life.
Yeah. So it's, I just don't see its relevance in here as to flow with what you're trying to get across. If we're strongly recommending a vaccination and you provide an incentive program, I think it's so those who choose one way will receive an incentive, and those who choose another, exercising their right to choose, they will not receive anything. I just don't think that it's necessary to put in.
Can I talk about it just for a second? Sort of from my perspective, if I were in the role of the government administrator of this program, having this type of recommendation that Spencer is suggesting might get the government to the percentage of vaccination very similar to the percentage of vaccination they would get to with a mandate, but without having to do the mandate, which is, I think, the biggest issue, right? So to me, this seems like a compromise, sort of like a Solomon type of thing where, hey, maybe you're not going to mandate it, but maybe you're going to do an incentive to try to get your numbers up. And other states have used incentives a lot more heavily for vaccination and had a lot more success. Our state did some incentives at the beginning, some like lottery type of stuff. But it's just a scheme you use for trying to get people vaccinated, right? You're trying to get your percentage up. And I think if you're the state government, I think they're in a bad spot because I think they believed that everybody was going to be mandating this vaccine for all students, and that hasn't happened. So I look at this and kind of go, this might be in reality what happens. This is kind of a step down from the mandate, but they still want to get those numbers up and use whatever methods they can to do that. And also the state has money from the federal government for COVID type response that they could use for this. So I'm not saying I support it either way. I'm just trying to step back and say, hey, the other side of the coin is this, they might see this as effective, almost as effective as the mandate.
Right, but this is a suggestion to facilitate a process, whereas this letter is more intended, I think, is what Jessica's trying to get to, is a statement of principle, if I may, and it may not fit.
That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't fit.
As
Well,
a statement of principle.
and that's why I offered 4 options, because again, I was trying to be all inclusive, and I don't know if I could ever get to that point of being all inclusive, but I want to just share with the board that this letter was written for the board to discuss, and I'm happy to continue to discuss this with the board.
So I guess that's just my opinion, is that I don't feel that it fits in. I want to approve it. However, because I want our district to be represented in this light, I just disagree. I just
With this
don't agree
position.
necessarily with the
And I can see your point.
reasoning for putting that recommendation in there. But on that, I'd like to move on.
I'm okay with removing number 2.
Can I have a motion to approve the letter with number 2 removed?
I make a motion that we approve the letter to Governor Newsom, omitting section 2 of the letter.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote? Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. We approve Governor Newsom's letter to Governor Newsom, omitting bullet point number 2. At this time, I'd like to ask for the approval of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Thank you, Dr. Holcomb, for the hard work on that letter.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Who has this one?
Excuse me.
Letter.
Thank you. That's me.
You're
So last month, as this item was for public hearing, and we discussed the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, where we had a block grant that we can use from now until 2025. It was about $650,000 that we can use between now and that date. Last month, I've put the vast majority of that money, I proposed to the board to put that towards positions for the district in the teacher specialist position. A teacher specialist position, raise your hand if you're a teacher specialist.
Raise your hand if you're a special teacher.
So with that being said, we have put aside money for our teacher specialist position through next year using our ESSER or COVID money. After that, I was looking for ways to fund that ongoing program, because I believe our issues, and we can see by our data that the issues that we have with our kids, both socially, emotionally, and academically, are not going to be a 1 or 2 year fix, but more of a more long-term fix. But I also heard the board share with me that they would like to kind of share out that money a little bit more. And so, but the money I put in last month was $600,000 so that we could continue our teacher specialist program for at least another year and maybe beyond. But I heard that from the board that we also need to look at some other programs like social emotional support and other trainings. And I would like to, and what I propose tonight with our Educator Effectiveness Grant is use about $400,000 of that money for teacher specialist position, and then $200,000 to support our social emotional, specifically to help fund in a couple years out the educational therapist position and some counseling positions that we have currently in place. And we would put approximately $200,000 into that fund so that we could carry it out another year or two beyond next year, because all of those positions in the district right now are funded through next year, again, using ESSER COVID money. So it basically affords us at least another year. And I'm looking at some other monies to supplement some of our other social emotional needs through ADR monies, and there's other forms of money. But I wanted to emphasize to our board that these programs, and I think our teachers have done a great job illustrating the importance that they and the impact they're making on our campuses. And so so tonight I recommend to the board that approve the Educator Effectiveness Grant as I have brought forward tonight, with about $400,000 going to teacher specialists and $200,000 to social emotional supports.
Any questions or comments on this item? Yes, Ms. Parmentier.
Beth, could you come to the microphone, please? The people at home can't hear what you're asking. Yes. It appears that we
You're
have
so
someone there.
positive. Okay. I just had a question, wondering if the money can be designated and then if needed, adjusted if we find more information coming out later.
So the answer is yes. We are approving this right now, but we have through 2025, and I'd have to look at the grant to look at the fine print. But I also know that things can also be brought back to the board.
Seeing no further comments or concerns, I'd like a motion to approve the Educator Effective Block Grant monies.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
The motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask to select a date for a board study session.
So we have some dates proposed of where we'd like to do a board study session, to where we can talk about some of the issues and possibilities that our district may have with some extra funding that we received for facilities and developments. And in light of some of the conversation that we had tonight about some of the issues that we have in our district, to have a board study session to discuss with our board some of the other issues, such as discipline and things of that nature, to where we can do a more comprehensive discussion about some of the issues facing us. And I'd like to propose these couple dates and set a date for those for a meeting.
Dr. Holtum, I'm sorry, I only see one date.
Oh, excuse me. So we proposed February 2nd to see if that works for everyone. If it doesn't, then we've looked at a couple other dates.
I'm fine with that date.
Okay, motion to approve February 2nd, 5 PM at Orville District Office, Orville Elementary District Office.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask for approval of English Learner Master Plan.
It's a board study session, but the general public
Yeah,
can
it's a
attend.
public session because it's, oh yeah, it's more than 24 hours. It's not an emergency session.
Okay, the EL program. This year, our district is being reviewed for a federally funded program. Our EL program is one of the programs being reviewed and is led by Mr. Diaz. He's put together a committee to develop an EL master plan. The committee represents all of the schools, and he's been working this fall to complete the plan. The documents in the appendices reflect all the forms needed to meet the EL requirements and prepare us for the FPM. This committee and Mr. Diaz are asking for the board to approve the EL plan.
I noticed that there wasn't a specific coordinator identified. Are we waiting to do that for the English language? Because we used to have Christina Menchaca as the coordinator. Are we going to do that in kind of the same format again? Nope, you're on now. There you go.
We have Mr. Diaz helping us lead the FPM this year.
Right.
We do not have a full-time coordinator at this point. When I came into the district last year, we have each of the principals take on one extra categorical program.
Okay.
And so that was Mr. Dowell. And this year, with the changing of the principal over at Wyandotte, we haven't appointed her to do that yet because she's been getting in and getting to know her school. So we will be looking at having an administrator be the person who will oversee the program.
Okay.
And currently my office is doing it.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Any other questions or concerns on this item? Motion to approve the English Learner Master Plan.
I make a motion that we approve the English Learner Master Plan.
Second.
A second.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye. The motion carries. I'd like to ask for approval of addendum to the material revision for Hippocany Early College Charter School.
Yeah, okay. All right. Epicani is experiencing what many districts are struggling with, shortage of staff to support their program. The 1st of December, Mr. Gramps contacted me saying he was losing another teacher and would not be able to sustain the current program. He wants to run an independent school for the 9th through 12th grade program for the remainder of this year. He has adjusted his program and made revisions in the handbook to reflect the material changes. His current plan will be to offer a computer-based program with weekly check-ins. He will offer any student an option to be at the school to complete his work. As the semester progresses, he will review the program to determine what path he will take for his school. And so tonight, what we are asking is he has submitted an addendum. And he made some changes also in his handbook to reflect the changes that are going on. So we're asking for approval tonight. And Mr. Gramps is here and would be happy to answer any questions. So any questions?
How many students do you have at your school? For the
Come on up to the podium. Thank you.
for the independent study program?
And can you give the board a little bit of just a very brief synopsis of how this is going to impact your high school students?
So basically,
Wait, hang on. You gotta push the button to make the red light go off so that your
this one right
microphone, there you go.
okay. So basically our high school students would either go into independent study program or they would go to the local high school for classroom-based studies. So basically, due to the teacher shortage, we don't have enough teachers to sustain the high school as a classroom-based school. So our board passed that, and just looking around in the Northern California area, like we need an English teacher, we need a science teacher, and there's a lot of job openings in Northern California when there typically aren't any. So, we're just feeling like we're not going to be able to fill those positions for the next semester. And it has been a concern for our parents at our parent council meeting, and also for our students in their interviews, just not having teachers there for them.
And how many students do you expect will be in your independent study program?
I would probably expect most of the older ones, the upperclassmen, to do it. We probably may lose a few freshmen or sophomores, but 75% of our students have came from the local high school, so it wouldn't be like a huge change for them if they decided they want to go back there to the classroom based.
Any further questions or concerns? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the addendum of, to the material revision for Hippocany Early College Charter School.
May I have a second?
A second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask for approval of the first interim report for the 21-22 fiscal school year.
I actually have one before that.
Did I?
No.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did. At this time, I'd like to ask, approve for the LCFF budget overview for parents.
So the LCFF budget overview for parents, you approved with the original budget. This is just an update with updated numbers from the first interim budget. It is simply the first interim budget with some selected numbers put in for simplicity. So when parents go to look at the budget, it's a easier to read, well, allegedly easier to read budget document.
Do we have any questions on that particular item? It is interesting reading, and for those of us who need a little bit of help reading the budget, it is definitely.
Yeah, it's got a nice,
helpful.
it has a nice pie chart page on it. That's, I think, the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah, the simplification.
Yeah, page 4 is, I think, when you have those nice charts, I think it really grabs people, but it's sort of trends like everything else with LCFF. It was designed to be simple and, simplified for parents to understand, and they made it 9 pages, almost all of text. So, this is the simplified version. When you look at it and go, it should be 1 page, 1 paragraph, and a chart. You're not, to me, it's very frustrating, but this is the state format.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye, the motion carries on the LCFF budget overview for parents. At this time, I'd like to ask for approval of the first interim report for 21-22 fiscal school year.
Okay, Kim, do you want to put me up? Let me reload this real quick. Okay, perfect. So this is the first interim budget for 21-22. Oh, good, the rain stopped for me. Nope. So the first interim budget is the second version of the financial plan for the 21-22 school year. I'm going to try to kind of hit the major notes tonight. The first interim budget is basically just a revision of original budget in theory, but in reality, the first interim budget is your first real budget for the school year. The original budget is developed in May based on a lot of assumptions, and you don't even have an adopted state budget at that point. So the first interim budget has actual beginning balances, has the actual state budget, and it has your actual allocations from the federal government. And it has also updated expense projections. So the first interim budget is really a working budget. So hold on, what's going on with that? There it is, okay. So the first interim budget has a lot of changes from the original budget. There are some new one-time funds. We have sharply declining enrollment, and like last first interim, we have major cuts required on the horizon due to our decrease in enrollment. I think if you take one thing away from this presentation, it's that our enrollment's going down and we're gonna have to make some changes. Talking about declining enrollment over the past 10 years or more, our district has seen an average about a 2% decline in enrollment. This is, if you look at Oroville City Elementary School District, not that many years ago had 4,000 students, and now we're crawling down to the sub 2,000 students level. The state of California has lost about 2% of people per year, but not all of our districts have seen that kind of ongoing decline in enrollment like Oroville City Elementary School District has. This year, however, we did not have a decline in enrollment. If you recall last year and the year before, we had lost about 5% of students as we went into the pandemic year. We were hoping for a bounce back. It came out as a flat, so we have the same number of students this year as we did last year, which for us, because we always project that it's going to be 2% down, is actually a positive thing for us. It's actually, for us, pretty good. I've had maybe 2 or 3 years where we've had either flat enrollment or an increase in enrollment. I think we're hoping for a little bit more than flat, hoping to get maybe back 1% more. But it is good news compared to the original budget. And then in all the future years in the budget, there's a 2% decline mathematically built into the enrollment. So it crawls down by 2% every year. But on top of that, Stream Charter School is expanding starting in 22-23. They're going to be adding 270 seats. Of those 270 seats, some of those will be independent study, and then the rest of them will be in person. What they're doing is adding a class per grade level, starting at K1, 2, and then adding a class a year, a new kindergarten class every year. So you can see the impact that will have on our enrollment. In my projections, I use the full amount that we're going to lose, the full 90 out of our district to Stream. Hopefully that won't be the case. However, because Stream is a charter school that we sponsor, they have a special enrollment waiting list formula. And part of the formula is if you live within the Oroville City Elementary School District boundaries, you kind of get a +1. So you're weighted more heavily and more likely to be accepted into Stream than students from other districts. So it's highly likely that we will lose 70 to 90 of these students to Stream in that 22-23 year.
How is the hold harmless?
What?
The hold harmless numbers going
Oh,
to affect this?
we'll get to hold harmless. Here's just so you can see visually the enrollment history and projections. And as you look across, you can see as we get into 23-24, we're having enrollment of less than 2,000 students. And as we start to climb down the stairs to become a district of less than 2,000 students, we really need to start to have a hard look at what it is that we're doing with our schools. Do we need to have 2 junior high schools? Do we need to have 4 elementary schools? Or do we need to maybe reconfigure those schools to offer maybe different programs? And also, how do we get that number to trend differently? How do we get that number to go up?
And I just wanted to add, we typically lose more students when they hit our middle schools. Hence why we're really focusing on ways to stop that slide with the VAPA program and things that we're promoting right now.
So one of the things I always talk about when we talk about the budget is the multi-year projection. The multi-year projection is on page 52. I printed off my handout just so I could have it to look at. But the multi-year projection looks at this year and projects the next 2 years. So when you're thinking about how you plan for a school's budget, you have to look at multiple years, because we have one opportunity to make layoffs, and it's coming up in a couple months to plan for the next year. So you have to look at it as a multi-year approach, because you have to make multi-year decisions as a school district, because we can't go and say, hey, this year I want to lay people off, because we can't lay anybody off this year. We can lay people off in March or April or February for the next year. And that's because of the different laws that are applicable to school districts. So we always have to look at that 3-year look. This is also what the county office requires. So as we look over 3 years, there are a couple of things that I always want to draw your attention to. when we talk about ADA and we're talking about that hold harmless, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were given a hold harmless in ADA, meaning that we could use our 1920 ADA for 1920, 2021, and 21-22, which has been a boon for us as we're a school that's declining in enrollment. However, when 22-23 shows up and we're no longer held harmless using that 1920, then you get to feel the impact of the loss of students over those 3 years. And as such, we lose about $2.9 million a year in LCFF revenues starting in 22-23, which is a huge decrease in our LCFF revenues. And we have heard some whispers and some rumors of maybe there's going to be some kind of a soft landing for districts, because we're not the only district in this situation. Many school districts across the state have lost lots of students due to natural declining enrollment and due to the consequences of pandemic and independent study. One thing I like to talk about is deficit spending or surplusing. In this budget, we have a surplus of funds in the first year and this year. And again, this is the year when we're still in that hold harmless. But as we get into the next year and the following year, we're deficit spending $2 million a year next year, and then $2.5 million a year in year 3. This demonstrates that Oroville City Elementary School District, as a entity, has systemic deficit spending. That means we need to find ways to shrink our operations or increase the number of students or increase revenue somehow. I think the only way we really know how to increase revenue is to increase students. But we're going to have to make some major adjustments to make up a $2 million hole in our budget. And again, when we're talking about surplusing versus deficit spending is you're spending more money than you're bringing in. So when you're spending more money than you're bringing in, you're burning up your reserves to do that. So you have whatever is in your savings account is what's getting you through the next 2 years. And after those 2 years, that savings account's gone. So if we're going to talk about reserves at any point, do you know we are using our reserves for us to be able to survive for those 3 years? Our budget's divided into 2 sides. One side is called unrestricted. Unrestricted is our regular educational program with LCFF funding. The other side of the budget is called the restricted side of the budget. The restricted side of the budget is going to be grants, special programs that the state or federal government's going to give us money for, and we have to operate, like Title I, Title III. These are things that are in the restricted side of the budget. Also in the restricted side of the budget are all these COVID monies. So this year, so far, I have budgeted that we're going to receive $11.9 million in COVID money. But that COVID money is not all for this year. Due to the way politics works, we received money for this year, next year, and possibly the third year this year. So when you look at the restricted side of the budget, you'll see that we're deficit spending like $7 million, $7.6 million next year is a pretty shockingly large number for deficit spending. But realize that as we spend that money, we're not going to have those expenses in the future. So as we have teacher specialists and things that we're using COVID money for, when the COVID money goes away, so go away the positions. So it's not going to impact the rest of the budget. So like I said, as the money goes away, so go the expenses. And again, almost all of this has to do with COVID funding. The rest of our restricted programs are like special education and Title I don't really deficit spend. They're pretty much a zero because they don't have the kind of carryover that creates. But you will see this in our budget, and it does kind of throw things off. It also makes our reserve levels have to be higher because we have a lot more expenses and a lot more revenue. Now we're talking about the ending balances for each year. As I look across and look at the ending balances for each year, in this year, our ending balance is projected at about $7.5 million. This is for unrestricted. Then you have the deficit spending of losing $2 million. So your ending balance is like $5.5 million. Then the next year it's $2.8 million. The issue becomes when we get to that next year, and I've started my year with $2.8 million and I'm deficit spending $2.5 million. I'm not going to have enough money for reserves at that point. So hopefully we'll have some changes between now and original budget for next year, which comes in May. But if we do not, we will be back in AB 1200 fiscal oversight at that point. So if I was just to add the fourth year on, we'd be in trouble. So hopefully things will change between now and then. And some of the things that could change might be we identify strategies for making reductions in staff or programs or other things to help kind of weather that storm. One thing to note, I've put together a couple of slides on deficit spending and fiscal oversight, but also to me, for whatever reason, the number 2,000 and getting under 2,000 is kind of scary for me. Since we were a district of over 4,000, not too many years ago, our funded ADA will be under 2,000 in 22-23. So we're starting to go down the slide. So what's the answer? Again, trying to conserve money on the unrestricted side of the budget. Obviously, the restricted side of the budget with the COVID money, we have to spend it. But the money we don't have to spend, we're trying to conserve as much as possible and also use that restricted money strategically on things that we think will save us money down the road on the other side of the budget. For example, air conditioners or HVAC machines. We can use COVID money for HVAC machines, and that'll save us money on the side of the budget that pays the power bill. So we're looking at those type of strategic initiatives with the restricted money that we have to help us reduce the amount of money we're spending annually. Again, a $2 million hole is too big of a hole in the budget to not make some kind of major changes. And again, I think Spencer and I have talked about this ad nauseum about how increases in enrollment really could fix this problem really quickly. To get $2 million in enrollment, a couple hundred kids, then you're fine, right? So how do we draw in some more students? That's really the big question, and really the more healthy question we need to be answering. Though I will be preparing, how do I cut? The other question needs to be, how do we grow? And that's all I had for a slideshow on the first interim budget. Any questions on the budget or any of the things in the budget packet?
How you doing, Lisa?
I'm good.
Okay.
Turn me off.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Conference on computer. It's a lot to take in, and I encourage you, if you have questions that are unanswered or you're not sure about or want to learn more about the budget, to contact me. I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one to go through these things so you have a better understanding of how our budget works and some of the different nuances. I try to hit the major topics that I think are the most pertinent each time, and I think for us, it's definitely attendance, the ADA and the enrollment, and the multi-year projection. I think if you have those two items, you have pretty much all the major components of the budget.
There's also some other pieces. When we talk about our budget, we know our budget is like I shared with you earlier, mostly made up of people, and we don't want to lose people. But at the same time, we have a number of openings at this time. So there may come to a point that we just decide that, we lay off those positions that are unfilled. That way we're not impacting directly people's lives. Yes, we take away some of the services that we need, but at the same time, we have to be fiscally solvent. And so that's one way to, for lack of a better word, right sizing our district. So that is something that we'll be looking at as early in 2022, because any savings that we start to get now through personnel, you can then double the next year and triple the third year. So if I'm saving $100,000 this year on personnel, the next year I'm saving an additional $100,000, and the third year additional $100,000. So that $2.5 million deficit, becomes 2.2. Is that an accurate statement?
Not the way you described it, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. Okay.
He's talking about building your reserves. So not necessarily reducing the deficit, but so reducing a position that was a $100,000 position would reduce our deficit spending by $100,000 every year, but it doesn't compound that. But the ending fund balance definitely compounds. So additionally, to kind of piggyback on what Spencer was saying about making cuts early and being a people-friendly employer, by having notice and planning and the ability to look out into the future and say, hey, we need to make these adjustments. Then we can say in between now and then, as people retire and things, we can just not fill those positions as we have time. The more time you have, the more you can do that. The less time you have, the more you're going to be giving people pink slips, which is ugly. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody got into schools to give people pink slips. But is the reality of the situation. So planning now and finding those positions that we can cherry pick as people retire or move on and just not fill them is what we've done so far, and had success and haven't had to lay off a lot of people in this district in the time I've been here. So again, it's all about planning ahead and making sure that you're looking at places you can save and positions you can not fill.
But we're not gonna have that many people to count on due to attrition. I mean, we've lost so many for retirements at this
You could
point.
get there. You could get there if you have 3 years, right?
Okay.
If you have 3 years to do it, you could get there. It's just having the people in the right places. And also, we know we're going to have more retirements and things, and there's just that natural savings from attrition as well. I have some of that calculated into the budget, but it's hard to capture that fully.
Right.
So if you have a lot of retirements, which I think there are a few coming, that helps the situation as well. And again, let's get some more students. That's the key.
We keep talking about getting more students, and it is sort of a separate issue, but it's like it's a bigger discussion. It's a larger.
Right. How do you
topic.
get more students?
Right, they're not
either you-
building any more houses in our district.
Exactly.
Right.
Jobs.
Well, I will say, if you take Palermo Union Elementary, about a third of their students live in our boundaries. You take Stream, and probably
Carmelito, same.
80 to 90% of those students live in our boundaries. So the students are there. We just need to go get them.
So is it because of the endorsement with the charter school is that the agreement that they get a +1 for being in our district?
It's how their charter is written.
It's how it's written. Is that negotiable?
When they come up for renewal, yes, but that's the only time it's the only time you can really do anything with Stream. Otherwise, it's just oversight, where we have a very limited ability to do much. That is something we could request and ask for, and I don't know if there's any legal reason or ramifications why that was built into the charter originally. To me, it's surprising a district would want that. But as we saw how that went down, for those of you who remember, you immediately had some board members quit and go to Stream after they approved it. So it was kind of a funny thing that happened here.
It was It was a rowdy time.
And then again, we saw the central teachers here tonight talking about visual and performing arts, their school. And that's something that I know Spencer's administration has been pushing on a lot, trying to draw in students with more unique and programs that are options that maybe they didn't have before, to draw in more students and draw more interest into the schools.
So how can we draw more children when we're having a problem just keeping them in school right now as it is because of COVID? So if they go into independent study, where does that leave the teachers? I mean, because if more kids go into independent study, once they start passing mandates and they don't want to agree to comply with them, the parents do not want to send their children to school. What do we do? I mean, how are we going to be able to get more children in school if we're losing them due to the pandemic? We don't know which way we're going to go.
So I know we're getting late, so I'll briefly answer that question. Since the pandemic, our independent study program went from around 20 students to about 80 students.
Mhm.
And we've pulled those teachers out of our classroom and just moved them into that program.
Right. The independent study is still ours.
But I've just reallocated where I put those teachers.
It's just like a
If-
different classroom.
If the mandate goes through, I'm working on a plan to where we would start an all virtual campus of our own to retain those kids. Okay. And I've already started working on, I've kind of put it on hold because I think the mandate's on hold for right now. That's what I'm hearing. But we do have a plan for that. I also have a plan for marketing our new VAPA school for Central because people need to know about it. And I'll talk more about that later, but I think we should move on.
Okay.
Motion to approve the first interim report for 21-22 school year.
I motion that we approve the first interim report for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Second,
Second,
Jill, how do you vote?
yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd like to ask to adopt the resolution 21-2203, notice of withdrawal from NVSICD.
So NIVSIG, which we also know as Keenan, is our workers' compensation carrier. It is apparently the European sports car of workers' compensation carriers. So our JPA, Butte Schools Self-Funded Programs, has been looking at other workers' compensation carriers that do the exact same thing as NIVSIG and getting different rates to see what's comparable. When they did the study, they found that if we switched vendors, we could save about 19% on workers' compensation. So I said, I'm not even going to talk to Spencer about this one. I'm just going to put it on the board agenda. It's 19%. He's in, I can tell. And it's again, it's just money because workers' compensation insurance, it helps with workers get hurt at work. And it's the same exact type of services as we have now. So I saw an opportunity to save the district some money annually, probably the, $20,000 to $30,000 a year at least. So it made sense to bring this and say, hey, this is an opportunity for us to save some money on something that we're just basically overpaying on.
Questions, concerns? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask to adopt the resolution 21-2204, opening of Fund 40.
Okay, so I have two fund openings. I'm going to hit them both right now and you can vote on them separately. We need Fund 40 to house the money we're going to be receiving from our insurance for the Feather Falls School. Additionally, we can put the proceeds from the Bird Street sale and the FEMA and Cal OES money from the Feather Falls School as well. What this will do is take all that money out of our general fund, put it in Fund 40. All that money can only be spent on capital facility projects anyway. But it reduces our requirements, our reserve requirements and different things in our general fund by having it segregated into a different fund. So I'm asking that you open up Fund 40 for our capital outlay projects. And it will be full of lots of money here shortly. Fund 95, there are some new accounting rules for student body accounts for elementary and junior high schools. So now we get to account for our ASB accounts on our books. In order to do that, I need a Fund 95 to put those numbers in because they don't actually exist in our treasurer. I don't actually control them, but I do need to account for them. So I'm asking for Fund 40 for capital facilities projects, and Fund 95 is sort of a formality. I just need it so I can do the appropriate GASB certified
Will Fund 95
accounting.
still reflect on the school sites general fund like it should?
The money's still going to stay the exact same in their own little bank accounts that they have now. It's just I have to do an accounting entry a couple times a year to adjust.
Any
But-
questions or concerns?
And again, that's because of the new government standards saying I have to.
Motion to approve opening of Fund 40 for capital outlay and Fund 95 for student body.
I motion that we approve to adopt the resolution for opening Fund 40 and Fund 95.
Second,
Second.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Sharon?
Aye.
Motion carries. This time I'd like to ask for the adoption of revisions to classified salary schedule range 20 steps 1 and 2 effective January 1st, 2022.
So this is a product of the minimum wage increase. As we've done in prior years with this salary schedule, we have one range that always is under minimum wage. And we've had to adjust it 3 or 4 times already. And what we've done is just taken the next highest step in that range and made the other, step 1 and 2 that same number, so that there isn't a number that's below the minimum wage on our salary schedule. So we can still hire people at step 1 and have them have the appropriate number of steps and not have to worry about it. It does create, mathematically, everything's supposed to be a certain amount apart. But what will happen is as we increase the salary schedule in the future, those cells won't increase as much or at all to accommodate spreading out of the rest of that salary schedule. So again, this is to accommodate for the minimum wage increase. I do believe this is the last one of these we'll have to do for a while because we're getting over $15 an hour, and the $15 an hour was the end of the minimum wage increases that were given to us by Jerry Brown.
Any comments or concerns?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How does CSEA feel about this? Were they involved? Is that something that has to be approved?
Yes, they were involved.
Okay.
Yeah, they were fine with this approach. This is, and again, the same approach we've used with them. And we do discuss this in CFIRE negotiations. And so they were happy with this solution and have been happy with this type of solution all along. So they're just happy to have a compliant salary schedule.
Motion to approve?
I motion to approve the adopt visions to qualified salary schedule range 20 steps 1 and 2.
Second,
I'll second.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
The motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask for approval of temporary certificated substitute teacher salary schedule.
So as we talked about in previous meetings, and we've heard, we have a severe substitute shortage in our district. We've seen this not only in our state, but also nationwide. And I would like to recommend to the board that we temporarily raise our certificated substitute salary schedule to $225 a day for the daily rate. And if you're a long-term sub, the daily rate would be $245, and then also the different rate for home hospital as agendized.
And this will be ongoing? Forever and ever?
No, this is temporary. This is be for the remainder of the 21-22 school year. And then we will relook at it to see how effective it was at the end of this year.
Any further comments or concerns? Motion to approve the temporary certificated substitute teacher salary schedule for 21-22 school year.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask for the approval proposal for the new walking path on Mesa Avenue.
So I'm asking for approval for this project. It's under what I would normally ask, under the dollar amount I normally ask for, but I want to use developer fee funds for this project. That's why I need your approval. Your approval to use developer fee funds, which are designed to be used for things like roadway improvements, parking, this type of thing. So that's what I'm asking you to approve. Our maintenance supervisor, Jim Campolo, came up with a brilliant idea about, hey, let's take some money and create a safer walking path for students down Mesa Avenue between the maintenance shop and Sierra del Oro preschool by having a 6-foot fence on one side, a 4-foot fence on the other, and have a 5-foot wide sidewalk, an actual, honestly, a sidewalk down that side. So the kids aren't walking in the road, aren't walking in the water and the gravel and the dirt. It would seem to me like a no-brainer, big safety improvement. I really appreciated the initiative Jim Campolo put into this. He did all the drawings, did all the estimating, got the estimates and everything. So I fully support this project. I think it makes perfect sense, and it makes perfect sense to use developer fee money for. So I'm here tonight to ask you to allow us to use developer fee money for this project.
I have literally been tailed by the school bus walking my kids to preschool and
Yeah.
not even know that they were there. Yeah.
Well, when you think about the transportational needs of our severely handicapped preschool, and to think that those students will also use that as well as central students, when there's a road that they're normally walking down the middle of with traffic.
Yeah. My kids learned how to ride their bikes on that road.
Yeah, so it's just another improvement. We made a lot of improvements to the traffic flow and the safety of Mesa Avenue by putting in gates and trying to block that off from all that through traffic. So we're hopeful that this will be one more step to make that a much better and much safer walk to school and walk home for those kids.
Any further comments or concerns? Motion to approve?
I move that we approve the new walking pathway.
I second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lisa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:25. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Stay dry out there. I'm really regretting I didn't bring my raincoat.